Okay, everyone. Wednesday morning. How are you all? Cut straight to the chase, John. I'm out and about. You may notice. Where do you think I am, John? Can you what? Are you a sporting fan?
Yeah, I think I know where you are because I think only because you told me though, it looks like you're in some sort of Club Tropicana situation. But I think
Yeah.
you're at the Australian Open tennis, is that right?
Yes. There's plenty of action going on. There's a Scottish player, Jacob Fernley, who's playing at the moment, John. So I've hot-footed
Okay.
from the court about 20 yards away to join you and discuss Celtic. Morning, everyone. How are you all? Hope you're doing all right after last night, which was an interesting game, John. I'm going to mute myself when I'm not talking. But what did you make of last night, mate?
Yeah, I thought it was obviously a frustrating game from a Celtics perspective. So much control in that first half, got the early goal, created another couple of chances. Idah, obviously, with the ball across from Kyogo. Paulo Bernardo had a header that went off the bar. And then overcommitment on a corner and poor positioning really leads to that Dundee breakaway. And I thought from that point onwards, Celtic were pretty poor in the game, and that second half was very poor from Celtic's usual standards. And you could tell Brendan Rodgers was frustrated. You could tell he was frustrated on the sidelines. You could tell he was frustrated in his post-match press conference, which is up on this channel as we speak, if people want to check that out. And he wasn't particularly happy with the nature of Celtic's defending and the missed chances, really. But Rodgers put a real focus on Celtic's defending at Dens Park, whereas I think a lot of supporters are talking about the missed chances and perhaps the Adam Idah situation. So a bit of a difference of opinion there, shall we say? I think it's a bit of both. You know, as always, these things it's a bit of both. So overall, yeah, it was a night of frustration. There's no doubt about it, and I think some individuals in the team need to start playing better because, as we keep saying, there is bigger and tougher tests on the horizon.
So what is the issue right now? Because I'm looking at it and it seemed to me quite a blunt thing to say, but it seemed to me like Dundee wanted it more last night, and they
Yeah.
were kind of they had more of an energy to their play. Um, is that down to the fact that we're so far clear in the league? Is that understandable from a player point of view? But also, even if it is understandable, it's something that has to be sorted, doesn't it? Because I mean, we're in January here. We've got huge games coming up over the next week, and as much as we've got a healthy lead, and most people feel we're looking really good for the league titles, there's still a lot of work to be done this season. We're just over halfway through the season, and I thought last night was concerning in the second half that Dundee they just seemed far more up for the battle, to be honest, in our players.
Yeah, I think it's a factor. Whether that's understandable or not will depend on how much sympathy you have for the players or like their attitude. I mean, they talk about how they don't let these things get into their head. I think it's natural, and I don't think they should really shy away from the fact that they've got a big points lead. For me, if you're Celtic and you've got such a point lead, acknowledge that and acknowledge that you need to perhaps find little bits of motivation elsewhere. We talked about it yesterday before the game on the show that Dundee are fighting for every point at the moment because there's like I said there's only 5 points. There was 5 points separating the top six and the relegation playoff position. So these teams are fighting for everything, and I think it's more evidence of the Scottish Premiership can be difficult if you're not on it. Like teams will make it difficult. It's very physical. That it's very quick and the transition from the one half to the other half is very quick because teams are so direct sometimes, and I think Dundee did that job in the sense of they know how to play against Celtic and their direct football and they're getting close to Celtic and they know they can maybe rough the defenders up a little bit. And Rodgers was particularly unhappy with that after the game, criticising the soft Celtic defending, the Austin Trusty incident with the winning the third goal just before he gets his foot stamped on. And Rodgers wasn't happy that Austin Trusty goes to the ground in that situation. He feels he should be dealing with Donnelly better. So I think teams know how to get at Celtic, and I think if Celtic are not at 100% and they're not fully into the match and fully committed into the match, then I think there can be problems. And it's funny because I said before the game, the conditions at the weekend almost made Celtic more up for it because they knew it was frozen. They know it was so cold. Like I think that kind of thing motivates them to like face challenges. I think it was just a bit too comfortable in that first half for Celtic last night, and then Dundee took them by surprise in the second half. The conditions were nice, the pitch was nice, and it was just all a little bit too comfortable and safe for Celtic. And I think that's when Celtic regress into their shell. And I think they should be if you're doing that and you have great control in the game, that's fine. But if you start to miss your chances and don't stick your chances away, then teams are going to come and try and attempt to fight back in this league. This league is not as easy as people think it is for these players. It is a difficult league, and you need to be 100% motivated in every game.
Because I mean, Brendan Rodgers spoke about that after the game, and I mean, I think you wrote up all his comments. People can read them on the website.
Yeah.
They can also watch Brendan Rodgers on the YouTube channel. He appeared to be pretty happy with the first 40 minutes and the control we had of the game, and I guess the missed opportunities from my memory. The big one for me was the Bernardo one. I mean, that was a total sitter for me. Idah had one as well, didn't he? From the Kyogo cross, so he should have done better. But what was the manager saying after that? Was that the kind of intensity wasn't there, and as you say, we were a bit soft.
Someone brought up the Idah situation in terms he's gone 12 goals now without a game. Someone brought that up directly to Rodgers, but Rodgers really batted it away and didn't really get into it. He said his frustration and his focus was the Celtic defending last night for whatever reason. Like, that's just how he viewed the game. He felt that if Celtic had defended that game better, Celtic would have won that game. He didn't feel the big issue was the Idah chance that puts Celtic 2-0 up and probably on a way to a victory. I think for supporters, they're seeing, a multi-million-pound striker looking unconfident, looking like he doesn't have that fire that you need as a central striker to stick away those chances when they come. And Adam Idah sticks those chances away because we saw it last season and we saw it in flashes this season. Like, he can do it. There's something about Adam Idah's confidence at the moment, and you're so desperate for him to get that goal and get over the line. But for Rodgers, he really, I think it was probably an element of protection of Idah, but he really batted away that question and put it back onto the defence. He didn't get into the Idah situation at all. So,
yes,
I mean, what do you make of the Idah situation? Are you feeling like it's a confidence thing, or are you worried about what he's going to be providing over the next few months?
So I'm trying to think back at recent games, and he is getting opportunities.
Yeah,
Like that one last night was a good chance, a clear cut opportunity. Kyogo did really well. Idah's movement was spot on. He just kind of, I think, saw the goalkeeper and let that affect his decision making. But at the weekend, he had that one that he just put wide of the post as well. I mean, that was a big opportunity. So he is getting chances. I think he's affecting games as well, and that he's like, it's not as if balls are completely bouncing off him. Like, he's linking the play relatively well, I would say. He just needs a goal. He badly needs a goal because, as you know, these things they grow arms and legs, and he goes without a goal, and it's becoming a big talking point now, isn't it? And I think there's a debate.
So.
There's a debate over whether you take him out the firing line a little bit now. And clearly, I mean, you think Kuno probably be back starting on Saturday, so. I mean, I would want Kyogo starting in the game against Kelly and the game against Young Boys, and potentially Idah comes off the bench, and hopefully against the tiring defence, he maybe gets that opportunity. I think that is the issue at the moment, and to be honest, it's an issue for a few of our players. They seem better coming off the bench, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Hatate certainly fits into that. Listen, I'm not getting massively concerned. I thought last night was a good game. I think Celtic will hopefully learn from that, and hopefully Brendan Rodgers not being happy after the game is a good thing, and that'll be a bit of a wake-up call. But I do think there's a few players just coasting a little bit at the moment, and you can probably guess who I'm talking about. But Edin needs a goal. He badly needs an ugly goal, doesn't he? Because as I say, I don't think he's actually playing badly, if that makes sense. I just think he badly needs the goal.
It's one of those things, Hamish, where say he scored 5 goals in the last 9 games, right? and he misses that chance last night. There's no chance everyone's talking about it as much. And people might accuse us of we're making it the talking point, etc., etc. But Celtic fans are talking about this like it's undeniable. People are talking about the Idah situation, so it's not something where we can just pretend it isn't happening and not talk about it. I think the fact that he's not scored for so long is an issue for him, because you can see it. You can see it in that chance. And I don't think that's as easy a chance as maybe some are making out. Like, it comes across to him and he's got to commit to it, and he knows the goalkeeper's coming, and he just doesn't show that little bit of commitment. But if you're paying that amount of money for a striker, you need that commitment in every single chance and every single moment. And it just wasn't quite there last night. And the same can be said for other players, such as Austin Trusty, with that third goal, and even the second goal where he's kind of bullied off the ball
Yeah,
in the lead up.
that was the worst one for me, John. That
Yeah,
that was, I mean,
yeah,
right after we scored, and you're looking at it going, right, okay, Celtic will kick on now and win this comfortably, a bit like Ross County at the weekend, and just not sharp enough, not strong enough. That was really disappointing. The third goal was disappointing because he was jousting with the guy. Donnelly wasn't he? Donnelly stood on his foot and he went down. And he had one in the first half as well. Remember with Simon Murray, where Simon Murray kind of caught him with an arm when he was uh, gesticulating to a teammate. So Dundee were at that last night, but like you just expect a little bit more. And I thought it was interesting because I don't know if you were thinking the same, but after that stamp on Trusty, which is the kind of thing that happens, I knew he was marking the guy Donnelly, and I'm going, right, come on, stand up now, Austin, stand up, head this away. And 5 seconds later, the ball's in the net, and it's the guy he was marking that scored. So, but I don't think personally I would look at Trusty so far and say that he's a weak player. Generally, I know
no,
he's
he's
had some
strong.
moments.
Yeah,
Like I know Dortmund he struggled, but that was everyone struggled that night. And I know there's been maybe occasional games like the cup final, the first half. He was obviously taken off at half time. But yeah, I don't quite know. I've seen some people comparing it to like Christopher Julian at Livingston years ago, and it just is almost as if early on in the game, maybe not winning that first tackle affected him because he was really poor. But I don't. I know you maybe think Scales might come in now at the weekend potentially.
well,
I hope that's not the case. I hope we stick with Carter Vickers and Trusty because I think that's a partnership that needs to grow, and it's a partnership I've got real high hopes for. I just think Trusty had a bad game last night. It's as simple as that for me.
I mean, there's a good comment here from Paul Nicol that I'll put up. It says, "Morning, guys. Trusty still thinks he's playing down south. Does he not know by now the Scottish League is a lot more physical?" I think there's an element, not that directly, but there's maybe an element of adjustment to the Scottish Premiership. Like, it is a difficult league for defenders. I think the Celtic defenders see so much of the ball and see so much of the possession that it can almost take them by surprise when the team starts having a go back at them and starts becoming more physical. And that's something that Trusty will have to get used to quickly. I think he's only played some like 21 or 22 games for Celtic. It's half a season. There is going to be these moments. Carol Starfelt had moments like this. Like you say, Christopher Julian had moments like this. I mean, they're
Oh
not.
yeah,
Boy, yeah, these are not weak individuals. They're not. They have the physical capability to deal with these forwards. I think Rogers used the word soft, which is maybe more appropriate, which infers that maybe it's about mentality or they just need to be more prepared in these moments. They need to be more at it and sharp and defend with their lives, even against Dundee away on a Tuesday night. Like, that's what I say. That's the commitment that a Celtic performance needs. We'll pull in another couple of comments. Mark Yule says, Idah was not the problem last night. The defence was. Kyogo went without scoring for a while, but others stepped up. The defence is the last line. If they fail, we lose goals. Kaiser says, it's not just Idah. Kyogo has been starved. Also, we need a striker that only needs a half chance to score, not 3 chances. I thought, you had those 2 chances in the first half. Chance creation, though, wasn't stellar last night, I would suggest. It wasn't as if there was a barrel load of chances missed. I think, especially in that second half, I thought the creation of chances was looking quite difficult. There was a couple of moments that one was blown offside that was quite close. But I think it's like an entire team performance. I think the thing that's for me, the first goal that Dundee score, where they score from the counter-attack, that's a Celtic corner. That's a classic goal that Celtic have conceded quite a lot over the last few years in terms of having the corner up at the other end of the pitch and then just look a bit lost in transition from the edge of our box. Maybe one overcommitment leads to gaping holes, and the Celtic defence, as the Celtic team as a whole, don't really know how to defend the counter-attack. So it's not one or two players we're talking about here. It's just, I think when the Celtic team aren't on it as a collective, then there can be an off night. But as you're kind of alluding there to as well, Hamish, there is a big picture here in the sense of Celtic are so far ahead in the league. It's not as if we're dropping points all over the place. It seems to be these isolated moments where it's kind of like it just seems a bit too comfortable. It seems like we're maybe too far ahead, or the situation's too comfortable for the players, and they just take their eye off the ball. It seems like it's almost like a concentration complacency thing for me, undoubtedly.
Yeah, and again, I just wonder, how much of that is kind of natural. And I mean, I know, yeah, I don't mean to let the team off with any of this because clearly they need to find that edge. And I think the thing is, it's not as if the edge has been missing for every game. Like I would look at the weekend and I'd say Celtic really had an edge there. And I thought it was
Yeah,
interesting that Brendan Rodgers, I think, brought up what the edge was after the game when he said it was his supporters, and he used that before the game.
that's true.
Supporters getting up at 3:30, and you've commented on this before that Brendan Rodgers is very good at finding those different wee kind of nuggets of information or whatever that can just give that extra bit of motivation. And as I say, he's very good at it. Um, I just think it's kind of natural maybe that you're that far ahead that you don't quite have that desire to to get you to the 100% that you need to get to. But the team they need to find a way. As much as I'm saying it's understandable, they need to find a way to get back to it. I personally think the Champions League will be a big one for them.
Yeah,
And I mean, we can maybe chat a bit about Wednesday because I do have some concerns about that game because we're not playing particularly well at the moment. I'm not sure if you can just turn it on Wednesday, even though we're playing probably the potentially the poorest team or the second poorest team in the Champions League. They're still a step up from Dundee, clearly. And I'm not sure you can just turn it on next week. I really think Saturday's a big game for us in the Scottish Cup. A game
yeah.
with a bit of jeopardy there. The team who ended their treble hopes last season. So I think Saturday's a big game, getting to some sort of level that we can build on for Wednesday. But it's a hard one because, like last night, if you're a Celtic player and you're looking at the games coming up, would last night really give you that buzz that the next couple of games
Yeah,
are going to?
and I'm thinking you're looking at Saturday might tell us a lot about whether this is like lull in terms of performance and general system and the players fitting in and combining with each other, or if it's a complacency thing. That'll tell us a lot on Saturday because if Celtic aren't there on Saturday, I don't think you can. I don't think the complacency thing is as much of a talking point as last night because, as you say, it's a game with jeopardy. Kilmarnock never make it easy. They'll be in for a battle there, and they'll fancy their chances of progressing to the next round. And if Celtic are up for it, then it kind of confirms what we're talking about in the sense that this is all a result of circumstance of where Celtic are in the league and how ahead they are at this stage of the season. If they go and blow Killie away, I think that's a valid thing to think. And then that gives us more hope, I think, for young boys because you would sense that that's another game with even more jeopardy. The stakes are huge. The crowd will be so up for it. It's a massive game in the context of the season and probably in the context of Celtic in the last 5 to 10 years. We've not made that step into the knockout round of the Champions League. And it's something that the fans have craved so much for quite a long time now. And there can be no excuses next week. I mean, we've talked about it
Yeah,
again and again. The Europe this season, it was all about going into this young boys game with the chance to qualify for the knockout stages, and that's the work that Celtic have put in up to this point. There's been ups and downs. The lows were low and the highs were high, but it was all about getting into this young boys game, arriving at kickoff and going, "You look, this is 90 minutes. If you win this game, you're into the knockout rounds." My camera's done this mad thing again. I'll try and sort this thing. You can still
it's
hear me.
just me that everyone can see.
Yeah, you're
That's not a
reporting
good
from the
thing.
tennis, Hamish. But just while I fix my camera, we'll just talk about just the stakes of next week and that the fact there can be no excuses.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me. Like the next couple of games, and especially Wednesday. If you win on Wednesday, you're everyone's feeling unbelievable about our season and how we're going. Wednesday, you just can't get away from Wednesday being such a big game. Um, but I do generally feel like I was kind of thinking earlier, is this a Celtic team that has kind of fundamental flaws? And have we witnessed that in recent months or recent weeks? Or is this a team, as you say, that's maybe just victims of the circumstance, and the circumstance being that the league is, you know, halfway to being wrapped up, maybe even more than that? I tend to think that it's the latter, and I think once the kind of crunch games come, and even just the fact that if we get to Wednesday night in the Champions League, I just think that'll focus the minds. I mean, how often, as you've commented on it before, first half of the season, it was the Champions League games that we kind of built around, and they kind of inspired the team and they inspired the support as well. So I do think that getting back to Wednesday, and obviously if you win in Wednesday, you get at least three more Champions League games guaranteed after that. That takes you up until March pretty much. I just think that'll focus the minds. The other thing that focuses the minds, John, and it was something I brought up yesterday, and you mocked me jokingly. Um, Sign a player. Give us a bit of freshness, inject a bit of freshness or positivity. Think back, I mean, our pal Stevie made a great point to me earlier, 5 or 6 seasons ago under Ronnie Dyler. Remember, we were kind of sauntering to the league in whatever it was, 2015, and we signed Stuart Armstrong, Gary Mackay-Steven, and it gave the whole place a bit of a lift. Like, go and make a signing. And I know they can't play in the Champions League, but I just think that would just kind of give everyone a lift, the support a lift, it give everyone inside, the squad and Lennoxtown a lift. It just strikes me as a team that just needs a wee thing. This isn't bad, I don't think. This is a good season. I think this is going to end up as one of Celtic's best seasons of the century. I genuinely think that. Just a bit of a kind of period at the moment where I think we need something different, just something to change a wee bit.
Yeah, I accept that, and I think in years past there's been a winter break, there's been a January break, and it's given the team a bit of a reset, and we don't have that this season. So Rodgers needs to find something different within this group of players that gives them that sense of reset, and maybe the Champions League being at this stage of the season as well can refocus minds a bit and get people start to be up for it. Maybe this was always going to be a tricky period where you're going away to these grounds, the games every 3 days, and maybe that context is something that a lot of people are missing. We don't know yet. We don't really know because the unanswered question of the bigger games on the horizon are still there. And you're looking at these games in isolation. And as always, Celtic fans are so invested in the results and the fortunes of this team that a draw is like, well, what went wrong there? But maybe this is just these draws are something that we take on the road to bigger games and better times, like you said, because I think, as you say, the season is still shaping up to be so special and so spectacular in many ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair point. I do think that's a fair point.
Three games coming up at Celtic Park as well, and that's something the manager pointed out after the game. So
Yeah,
feeling good about that. I think Saturday's a big one. Obviously,
yeah,
next
it is.
Wednesday's the one everyone's talking about. 5:30 kickoff, isn't it? I think you're going to get a really good crowd at Celtic Park. It would be, well, clearly under the lights at that time. As I say, cup game. I think everyone will have a bit of a spring in their step, and I expect the team to do that as well. So, um, feeling
Do you
good
think the
about
team
that.
are dreaming of being at the Australian Open tennis? Do you think that's the problem here?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, the weather's horrible, mate. Like it's thunder today. Can you hear the wind? Has it been pretty loud?
No, no, I've not heard it too
Okay.
much.
What's the other news you were telling me about earlier then?
Daniel Cumings, Fabrizio Romano, the old Fabrizio Romano tweet. He tweeted early this morning. He was getting out a lot of transfer stories, and one of them was that West Ham and Brighton are the teams showing most serious interest in Daniel Cumings, who is coming to the end of his contract at Celtic, as he obviously scored over 20 goals for the B team this season. The chat is that Celtic do want to keep him, and are trying to get him to sign a new contract, but with these teams down south sniffing about, then it becomes an issue, like we've seen with Ben Doak, like we've seen with Rocco Vata. It is a shame for me that our best talents in recent years are just going to England at seemingly the first opportunity. But Celtic need to prove whatever this pathway is for these players. Celtic have a unique selling point for me in the sense of we can possibly provide first team football more quickly than these teams down south. but that needs to be laid out, and that needs to be something that is assured for some of these players for me. And Daniel Cumings, he was given a little token appearance on the bench at the weekend. I know I'm not suggesting we rely on Daniel Cumings as our first choice striker. That's not what I'm saying. But minutes here and there can be valuable for these players, and it could show them that they're more involved and more part of it. If we want Daniel Cumings to sign a new contract, show him he's wanted for me. That's what it comes down to. And there seems to be a little bit of a standoff between the club and these young players at the moment, where the club are like, well, these young players are getting a bit ahead of themselves and wanting too much too soon, perhaps. But then with the English clubs on the down south, just down south, and got money and got academies and got all these resources, these lifestyle resources that can change a young player's life. It's not just about the money; it's about the whole lifestyle around the club and their academy and the reserve teams and stuff. It's a different world, I think. So it would be a shame for Daniel Cumings to leave before we really see whether he's got the potential to be a good Celtic player. Like, that's all I'm looking for. I'm just looking to see whether we can have signs of that potential. So I guess we'll see how that situation pans out.
Yeah, it's just a difficult one. I mean, I feel like we repeat this conversation for
Yeah,
virtually every player, because it's like, is it a case of take Daniel Cummins, for example, is it a case of Daniel Cummins not being good enough to earn the opportunities, or is it a
yeah,
case of the opportunities not being there for him? And
yeah,
potentially, it's a bit of both, potentially. But I mean, he's a fourth choice striker, and our third choice striker, Johnny Kenny, barely plays. And I mean, you maybe only see him a few more times this season, Johnny Kenny, potentially slightly more than that. So what is the solution to that? Is it to get him out on loan and to find out if he's got something, then to give him a run? But the reality is that, like, we've got such a big, strong squad these days. I mean, the Celtic squad these days is much stronger than it was 10, 15 years ago. In terms of, like, when you look at like Neil Lennon's first time at the club, or Ronnie Dyler, like, the squad is so much stronger. So therefore the opportunities aren't there as much. I think it needs to be a pretty special player that comes through. And I mean, who was the last player who actually came through to be a first team star? Was it Kieran Tierney?
yeah. It seems like the one who became a regular was Kieran Tierney. Yeah. You had Mikey Johnston, but he didn't become a star. He was always on the fringes. But those two are probably the ones that have made the most sustained first team appearances over the last, what, 10 years or so, which isn't fantastic. And I think there's an element, like, obviously I'm not saying Daniel Cummings is going to become a superstar. That's not what I'm saying. But you just want to see at
You want
least.
to find out.
You want to find out. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And
Where does it rank in terms of things that matter to you as a Celtic fan? Because clearly the team winning trophies is a thing. Is it
yeah,
something that is it something that's important to you? You would say, is it something you would lose sleep over?
I think it's important because I think you can do both at the same time. I don't think it needs to be one or the other. I don't think it's one of those binary situations. I think we could be doing more with our young players. At the same time, not all these young players are going to make it and become massive stars. That's just the reality of it. But I think it used to be, you would get the odd player now and again that moves down south quickly, but it just seems to be every single player with potential now. That I think that's what's frustrating for people. It's like it's not just the odd player here and there, and they're going to move on. Like every single player with any sort of potential that is coming through this B team just seems to be heading to England as soon as people find out that they've maybe got a bit of potential. And I think that's probably the frustrating thing. So I think just a little bit more would be nice.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. What are people saying, John? Any other comments you want to drag up? Any from the
I
legends? I
mean,
feel like I've not
a
even
lot of people.
said hi to the legends today. How are you, everyone? I hope you're enjoying your Wednesday morning. What are they saying?
A lot of people talking about Daniel Cummins, but kind of both
Right.
sides of the argument that we're putting forward. Just like it's difficult to find time. All these players aren't going to make it. Players leave clubs all the time, etc., etc. So I'm not. It's not an express criticism of Celtic. It would just be nice to find better solutions going forward for me. That's probably my
Yeah.
message on it.
Okay. What's on website wise? I saw the guys were at Dens Park last night, so they
Yeah,
had
the
plenty
guys
to
at Den
say.
Park last night. So they're still they were home late, I think, which is why I'm on the briefing this morning. I think it was going to be Tony, but I decided to step in and give them a wee break. Ryan's off today, but we'll have plenty on the site. We've got an interview with a former player coming up today. We've got other like embargoed quotes from Dens Park that are going out tonight as well. I believe it's Luke McCowan we spoke to, so there'll be comments from Luke McCowan, how he felt about the game and going forward in a Celtic shirt. Luke McCowan's header we've not even talked about,
How
but that was
good
a
a goal was
fantastic header.
that?
Yeah, fantastic. I loved it.
Oh,
So we'll hear from him, and yeah, lots more beside. We're as always digging into transfer stuff as much as we can. So as soon as things start to happen, we'll be all over it.
should say I mentioned earlier, but if people want to hear and watch Brendan Rodgers after the game last night
Yeah,
speaking to the media, they should check that out because it's on the YouTube channel. So we're just finishing up here. Go and check that out. It's only 5 or 6 minutes, I think, but
yeah,
I just love. I just think it's brilliant being able to actually not just read what the manager said, but actually watch. And I mean, for example, there was a quote he gave about Yang, and you wrote up the quotes as well, and he said, "Bless him." I had it as this kind of big quote, and then when you actually hear him say it, it gives a total kind of different
I
complexion
agree.
to what he was saying. But people can check that out. It's on our YouTube channel and plenty to be read as well. Okay, we'll head off then, John, if you're happy.
Yeah, yeah. Goodbye, everyone. We'll be back for a briefing tomorrow. It won't be Hamish, but we'll have briefings for the rest of the week, and I think we'll see you next week, Hamish. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll be tennised out my nut over the next few days, but I'll be back fighting fit on Monday, everyone. So have a good week, and I'll catch up with you all then.